Forest fire. Read and enjoy. Let's read a story about forest fires and see how animals and humans alike are affected by it. Paras was about to mount his bicycle. Suddenly, he spotted smoke rising from behind the distant line of trees. "It looks like a forest fire," said Somesh to his friend. "It's nowhere near the road," said Paras. "There's a strong wind," said Somesh, looking at the dry leaves swirling across the road. It was the middle of May, and it hadn't rained for several weeks. The grass was brown and the leaves of the trees were covered with dust. Even though it was about 6 o'clock in the evening, the boys' shirts were damp with sweat. "It will be getting dark soon," said Somesh. "You'd better spend the night at my house." "No, Somesh," said Paras. "I need to be home tonight. My father isn't keeping well. The doctor has given me some pills for him." "You'd better hurry, then. That fire seems to be spreading," said Somesh. "It will take me only 40 minutes to ride through the forest. Bye, Somesh. See you tomorrow." Paras mounted his bicycle and set out. His village was about 7 miles on the other side of the forest. He rode swiftly out of the village. Ahead of him, the smoke rose from the burning forest and the sky glowed red. He soon left the village far behind. He was now pedaling on the edge of the forest. This was the part Paras enjoyed the most. The wind was rushing past him, blowing his hair about his face and making his shirt billow out behind him. He burst into a song. The smoke was thicker now, and Paras caught the smell of burning timber. But ahead of him the road was clear. He rode on. It was a rough, dusty road through the forest. Tall trees grew on either side, but the spreading glow of the fire on the right lit up the road. Usually the road was deserted, but this evening wild creatures were fleeing from the forest fire. The first animal that Paras saw was a hare, leaping across the road in front of him. It was followed by several more hares. Then, a band of monkeys ran across, chattering excitedly. "They'll be safe on the other side," thought Paras. "The fire won't cross the road." But it was coming closer. Paras pedaled harder. He thought, in half an hour he should be out of the forest. Suddenly, from the side of the road, several pheasants rose in the air, and with a whoosh, landed just in front of the oncoming bicycle. Taken by surprise, Paras fell off the bicycle. He got up and saw that his knee was bleeding. It wasn't a deep cut. He took out his handkerchief and bandaged his knee. Then, he mounted the bicycle again. He rode a bit slower now, because birds and animals kept coming out of the bushes. Smaller birds too were rushing across the road. Parrots, jungle crows, owls, magpies, and the air was filled with their cries. Paras could see the flames from behind the trees on his right, and he could hear the cracking as dry leaves caught fire. The air was hot on his face. A herd of deer crossed the road and Paras had to stop until they had passed. Then he rode on, but now he was feeling afraid. From ahead came a faint clanging sound. A fire engine? There were no fire engines within 50 miles. Soon Paras discovered that the noise came from a small boy who was running along the forest path with 2 milk cans clattering at his side. "Nikhil," called Paras, recognizing the boy. "What are you doing here?" "Trying to get home, of course," said Nikhil, panting along beside the bicycle. "Jump on," said Paras, stopping for him. Nikhil was only 8 or 9, a couple of years younger than Paras. He had come to deliver milk to some road workers, but the workers had left at the first sign of the fire, and Nikhil was hurrying home with his cans still full of milk. He got up on the carrier of the bicycle, and Paras moved on again. "I will keep beating your milk cans so that the animals will be known we are coming," said Paras. "My bell doesn't make enough noise." The fire was much closer now. Flames shot up. Smoke billowed out above the forest. Paras's eyes were burning, but he couldn't stop now. Another 15 minutes of steady riding would get them to the small wooden bridge on the river that separated the forest from the sugarcane fields. Once across the river, they would be safe. Clang, 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 went Nikhil's milk cans. But the sounds of the fire grew louder too. "Oh, look!" exclaimed Paras, bringing the bicycle to a sudden stop. An elephant was standing in the middle of the road. It moved about restlessly, its big ears flapping, wondering which way to go. From the left, where the forest was still untouched by fire, a herd of elephants moved towards the river. The leader of the herd raised his trunk and trumpeted a call. Hearing it, the elephants on the road raised its own trunk and trumpeted a reply. Then it walked off into the forest, in the direction of the herd. "Come, Nikhil, jump on," urged Paras. "We can't stay here much longer." Nikhil sat on the crossbar. Paras pedaled swiftly. "We're nearly there," said Nikhil. On their way they saw a jackal in the middle of the path. It was either dead or unconscious because of the heat and smoke. Paras rode at top speed. They were close to the river. Paras and Nikhil went into the water. The water was only knee-deep, but it was very cold. Together they pulled the bicycle through the water. The river was quite swift in the middle. They kicked off their shoes, knowing that the shoes would be lost. Then, gripping the smooth stones of the riverbed with their toes, they reached the opposite bank and sank down on the grass. "We can rest now," said Paras. They watched the fire as it continued to spread. It had crossed the road down which they had come. The sky was bright red, and the river reflected the color of the sky. Several elephants had found their way down to the river. They were cooling off by spraying water on each other with their trunks. Further downstream, there were deer and other animals. Paras and Nikhil looked at each other in the glow of the fire. They hadn't known each other very well before, but now they felt they had been friends for years.